I want to talk a little bit about attachment through the Taoist lens and its relationship to the metal element. So the father's role, our father's role is they play a very important role in helping us develop healthy attachment. And there is this common misconception that males often have in our culture that the father is meant to be the provider, right? This is kind of old school thinking, but it's last generation, and a lot of people still think this way, that the man provides the material goods and they provide in like a traditional conservative nuclear context. And their primary role as a parent is to be a provider. And this causes a lot of problems for young people because the male or the father doesn't see themselves as an educator. They see themselves as a provider. And so a lot of young people, a lot of young people are not nourished and educated adequately, right? And a lot of fathers think the education system will take care of the education. And I don't know about you, but my experience of the education system was that it was profoundly lacking, meaning it taught me to learn a lot of information and to regurgitate that information on tests and to get good grades, and that I then could assess my value and worth based on getting good grades, which then means get the job. It's all external. But there was no foundational model for education for my internal education, for the education of how do I understand myself? How do I learn to navigate, to cultivate wisdom so that I can navigate life intelligently with wisdom? So the father's role in this is so important. Um, the father's role is to appreciate the child in order for them to manifest their potential. So the child feels their sense of worth and value starting very early on. And then to take us out into the world and to teach us how the world works to some degree, how to form healthy attachments outside the family, and to teach us how to let go and how to attach. And so this gets into some really interesting material. Healthy letting go, we talked about the large intestine, healthy letting go and healthy attachment or attaching, which is the lung energy, is associated with value. We attach to things that we find valuable. We let go of things that we no longer find valuable, right? When we don't have an education in childhood on attachment, then we develop one of two habits in response to life events, in response to grief, and in response to value, things of value. And I'm going to kind of end I'm going to end this talk on this note because it will be the doorway into shadow work, into the unconscious work, and into all the repressed material of our own value, our own worth, etc. So the yin response, and this is an unhealthy response when we haven't learned proper attachment in our childhood. The yin response is that you can't hold on to anything. You can't recognize value. You don't let things in. And when you do let things in, you can't hold on to them. So this has to do with commitment issues, people who can't commit. Um, it has to do with looking for outside authority instead of having your own authority. These are often codependent relationships, right? Where you don't have a sense of self-sovereignty and a sense of self-worth that's strong enough. So you try to attach to other people. These people join a lot of groups. They try to find their identity externally. Um, they tend to feel isolated and sad, and they have low self-worth because they can't hold on to things. These are people who would reject acknowledgement. If you were to acknowledge somebody who can't hold on, who has this yin response, if you acknowledge them, they would immediately say, oh, no, 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 no. They can't accept a compliment. Um, they can't accept their own value. They can't accept their own worth. And they don't want to acknowledge the value of worth of things in their life because they weren't taught to see value and worth in things. So this is the yin response, is you can't hold on to anything. And then the yang response, which is the other side, is you can't let go. So this gets into not being able to let go of attachments, even when they're unhealthy, even when they're harmful to your well-being. This often manifests as addictions, um, and material hoarding, people who just gather things and they can't let things go. Um, a compulsive drive to get more. So when you're trying to prove a sense of self-worth through more, better, bigger, trying to prove your worth externally constantly. These people tend to be very critical. They have impossible standards. They have very fixed and unyielding attitudes towards things. They're critical people who um, are constantly trying to accumulate and prove their sense of self-worth through the way they present themselves. If we never let go, we don't feel grief. And so we bury all this tension, right? Letting go has to do with a healthy relationship to grief. People who don't let go, don't let themselves grieve, um, they tend to become very emotionally constipated, is a way of putting it. So some ways to heal, these are just, I'll end on this note, which is some simple ways to work on healing and balancing the metal element are finding value in the present moment. You know, when we externalize value and worth, um, we tend to live in the past or in the future. There's a constant sense of when I get this thing, when I achieve this status, when I get to this imaginary place in the future, then I'll feel valuable. Then I'll feel worthy. Then I'll feel whatever. Um, this externalization of value and worth is never ending, right? And so the person never has that core foundation. So connecting with intrinsic value means understanding that there is inherent worth in just being a human being and having a human experience. This connection to intrinsic value is very healing to metal dysfunctionality. So learning the value of the present is just like noticing things with the five senses, you know, like getting anchored in the body. And this is why, of course, I think tea is the solution to all problems on planet Earth. But when you prepare the tea, like appreciating the aroma, the flavor, the sounds, like the beauty of the flowers, of the incense, of the using the five senses. When you eat, don't do other shit. Just eat, nourish yourself. Like learning to really nourish oneself, which is earth element energy. When you are properly nourishing, to nourish yourself, you have to be present. When you are present, you heal a lot of that externalization of value and worth. So learning to find value in the present, um, connecting with gratitude for the present, as cliched and silly as it sounds, Every morning, just journaling 3 things you're grateful for. You're rebuilding this habit of finding worth and value in the simple abundance of your life. Like, we are so abundant. Our lives are so full, like, it's crazy when you compare your life to anybody throughout all of human history. We are overwhelmed with abundance. So this simple practice of connecting with gratitude regularly, you cannot connect with gratitude and be closed. The practice of gratitude opens. You also can't be truly grateful and not be present, because to feel gratitude is to be present in this moment, right? Another way to heal metal element energy is to embrace the animal body. So the animal, we're going to talk in this course when we talk about shadow stuff about the animal instincts. We talked a little bit about that, but getting into the physical body. Metal types who are cold and aloof and detached, they need to learn to laugh. They need to learn to get into their bodies and out of their heads. They need to learn to open up emotionally to people. So physicality is so important for metal types. Music, the senses, sensuousness, like getting out of that cold metallic condensed state in that hyper intellectual state. So the senses, physicality, nourishment, food, music, anything that gets you into the body is healing for metal types. And then letting go, right? Learning to not just let go of things that you don't need and doing release work, but letting yourself feel the grief of letting go, not doing it in a cold manner.